Hi and welcome to our round recap of the Grand-Prix, FIDE Grand-Prix in Beijing 2013. The game I'm going to analyze now is the one played between Anish Giri and Peter Leko. And Giri played with the white pieces, Leko with the black, and the game went into a line which I think it was even recommended by Lars Schandorf in one of his recent books, playing first d4, the Indian defenses. So it was Nimzo Indian and especially their Rubinstein variation with e3. In this system, usually white tries to back up this pawn, free this bishop, and try to fight for the center, especially this e4 pawn later on. And there are many systems, and one popular line is now this Nge2 system, which avoids the double pawns. Here, by taking on c3, he could just retake with knight. And the main drawback here is that, of course, the bishop on f1 is right now not in play. And I would say what white would be aiming for is if black takes, the knight just retakes. The bishop can go out, and white has the bishop here, better central control, easy development with bishop d3, maybe queen f3 or f3 and e4, then castle, and enjoys a pretty good small edge maybe even. And that's what white players hope for if they play the Nge2 system, where of course things are not as simple as that. Black has many systems to choose now from this position. He can play b6, he can even play c5 here, or he could even play the move which was played in the game here, d5, which leads certainly to some Queen's Gambit declined type of positions. And after a3, once again, if black takes, the knight retakes. White enjoys, I would say, a small edge, a small positional edge. He has better central control. You can always exchange a wing pawn for a central pawn, giving a slight edge. He has, as I mentioned before, very easy development with bishop d3, castle, and so on. And maybe we can expand on the king side with the queen side with b4. Bishop b7 is the general retreat. It's usually played without any thought, and I think even Schandorf here recommends that white plays c takes d5, e takes d5, leading to the Carlsbad structure, the Queen's Gambit exchange kind of structure, with a6, a3 being played, and the knight being on e2 before the bishop comes out. Usually you reach similar positions after d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, takes, bishop g5, let's say bishop e7, e3, castle. In that case, if we compare a position, we now have knight g2 and the a3 played, but instead bishop d3, for instance. Now let's say c6 and knight g2. Knight bd7, for instance, castle, rook e8, something like this, which is probably the most dangerous system right now. And if we compare this position here to that one, we see that, sorry, not this one, to this position, we see that the bishop is a slightly inferior version. If white could have this bishop on d3, it would be very good. It would be very good for him. But okay, it's still not bad, but it's not the ideal Carlsbad type of position. Okay, now it's quite an interesting choice by Anish Giri. Okay, he plays the b4 immediately, which I think is okay right now. But okay, once black plays c6, he always have to be concerned himself with moves such as a5. a7, f5 just uses the fact that this rook is unprotected, and that in a way this pawn is pinned once the a file opens up, and therefore I'm not sure if this is premature. I mean, this move I think the second most choice. But I don't know. I wouldn't like to allow black this counterplay. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I think there are better choices. I would stick maybe with knight f4 here, for instance, as played by Tomaszewski against Karyakin in Kiev 2013. Looks very strong to me. For instance, after c6, then simply to finish the development, bishop d3, knight a6, proceeding to c7, because b4 is not accessible, and maybe then b4. The game ended in a draw, but it was quite interesting to. I think white might have better chances there. b4, as you can see, will give black some serious counterplay. c6, knight g3. Okay, somehow the bishop has to be developed. Rook e8, bishop d3, knight bd7, following normal plans. Cancel, and now knight b6. Okay, knight b6 followed by queen c2. Ensuring that this knight doesn't move anywhere. He cannot go to e4 because we are attacking it 3 times, which means we will just win a pawn. And he cannot move because h7 is hanging. And now comes the move a5. This move is the reason why I wouldn't play b4 that early. I mean, it just allows unnecessary counterplay, in my opinion. And okay, let's see which options white has. He could either take the pawn, b takes a5, rook takes a5, a4, just to fix the rook there, and then maybe even try to play bishop d2, and sometimes with some discovered attacks or something like this, some tactics. Rook a7, bishop a3, trying to exchange off the bad bishop, takes, bishop e6, rook b3, and knight c4. I must say that, in my opinion, both weaknesses will count each other out. But, well, black still has his bad bishop, so maybe it's slightly more pleasant to play for white. But I wouldn't say that he has any advantage at all. Okay, then Giri played b5 here. Also interesting, trying to execute the kind of minority attack. If he takes on c6, b takes c6, he will always have this weakness which he can attack later on. But yeah, actually there was a pretty nice move which Peter Leko played, c5. Probably his idea was that the isolated pawn might be weak, but this setup here of the pawns might also be weak. Especially if white sometimes plays a4, this pawn will need permanent defender. And the knight on b6 does a very great job on binding the white pieces to the fence of the square. And okay, it's happened in the game now. D takes c, bishop takes c5, bishop b2. Okay, something like knight takes d5 to attack the bishop doesn't work. We just take with the queen. So this tactic doesn't work right now, but once if the queen moves, who knows? Okay, bishop d6, which in my opinion, I find it quite dubious in a way. It's just, the reason being, I don't know. He should try to control d4 as much as possible. From d6 he can go to e5, but this would just ease white's task in exchanging defenders. Because usually if you play against isolated queen's pawn position, you try to exchange as many minor pieces as possible to reduce the dynamic compensation black can get for it. He can play the knight to e4 and then always controlling some squares here, followed by f5, f4, maybe later open up the f5, and always generate some play. And with less minor pieces, this play is simply not available. And I'm not sure if this plan is quite good, but okay, the way Anish Giri handles this isolated queen position, in my opinion, was anyway a bit dubious. For instance, knight c2. Okay, that's logical, just controlling d4. G6. Okay, the threat right now was just to take here and then to take on h7, One could argue about a threat because, I mean, black has the bishop pair then, but I would say that white definitely should be better there. So g6 was played. Okay, he played rook a to d1. In my opinion, rook after d1 is more precise. I think that this rook belongs to the d file, and the other rook later on to c. I would say that this might be better, but okay, let's see. Knight f4 might also be an interesting choice, as we can see later in one of the other lines. For instance, after bishop d7, you could now try knight f4 instead of queen b1 as he played in the game. Knight f4 has an interesting idea because, okay, if black decides to take, white gains an edge because e takes d. The bishop is free to go, and white can always increase the pressure on these two pawns by playing f5. And I think that this is certainly favorable for him. For instance, rook c8 to take the queen, rook queen b1, knight c4, bishop takes, and the problem being you cannot take with the d pawn because bishop takes f6 exploits an interesting tactical motive, which is overload. The queen cannot defend both the bishop and the knight. Remove the defender and take the bishop, winning. And otherwise, if he takes with the rook, we just play f5 and gain a huge initiative. White should be much better here. I mean, the bishop is a monster. You can sometimes always try to remove the defender of this pawn here, taking it. I would say, yeah, black's probably in trouble here. Okay, but after queen b1, which he played in the game, knight a4 is quite interesting. Okay, trying to use to exchange off one of the bishops, which would certainly reduce the pressure from white side against, especially on this light dark squares here on the king side. So I'm not quite sure about knight g4 here. Looks also interesting with the aim to play maybe something like this, knight g to e5, or maybe even h5, h4. Might be playable. Okay, knight a4, bishop a1. Okay, preserving the bishop pair. And now, okay, bishop e5. When I saw this move, I thought white should be better now. I mean, you shouldn't try to exchange pieces if you play the isolated queen's pawn position. I mean, I think a certain Magnus Carlsen would play this position until the very end, and I think he could even squeeze some points out of it. Okay, here I must say rook c1, which Anish played, is also bad. I mean, I don't understand why he, okay, I would have handled it that way. Bishop takes e5, rook takes c5. This rook is not very good there. We can use it queen c2, knight b6, queen c5. If, for instance, rook c8, we just play queen d4 and enjoy certain pressure. For instance, after rook e8, just rook c1 now, and white should be slightly better. If, for instance, instead of rook c8, if you just place rook e8, we just continue, for instance, rook c1. And I think it's very good for white here. He should at least be better. Okay, rook c1, queen e7. He took now. I think it's a worse version of it because the queen is much more effective and powerful there. After queen c2, even the engine suggests that white should probably go for the repetition of moves of knight b6, queen c5, knight e4, queen c2. If he would like to play on, for instance, he could try queen c3, and if black exchanges, rook takes, rook e to c8, rook f to c1, we get a kind of strange isolated queen's pawn position. I mean, as I mentioned before, these pawns on the queen side here, b5 and a3, are not ideally placed. This knight on b6 does a very good job in isolating this pawn on b5, because once a4 is played, the a4 pawn needs permanent defender, and one way of attacking or playing against the isolated queen's pawn is to double the rooks, the heavy pieces on the d file, and pressure this pawn. Exchange off the minor pieces, and then try to use the heavy pieces to pick up the pawn. But in that case, I mean, he cannot really pressure the d pawn. He always needs some defenders for his weak pawns there on the queen side. So I would say it's rather unclear, but I don't think black should have any problems here. He might, of course, try to play on and use some mistakes by his opponent, but Peter Leko is a very good technical player, and I wouldn't expect of him that he spoils such a position, even slightly inferior positions. He demonstrated very well that he can defend such positions in his World Championship game against Vladimir Kramnik. So I think, okay, the draw was the most likely outcome then, after Anish somehow misplayed this position here, in my opinion. I think bishop takes e5 is much better. Rook takes, and then queen c2, queen c5, and going for d4, and then simply putting the rook on the probably on the c file, or even trying rook d2, rook after d1, and then playing against this pawn here. Might have been maybe a better try, but okay. Who knows? Maybe he has some ideas and thought that it wouldn't be enough. Well, okay, yeah, rather okay. I would say a very entertaining play. Okay, we cannot expect much probably if you play Peter Leko. He's a very good and very solid player, so he doesn't choose the most aggressive lines in general. But okay, just before move, I don't like it. I wouldn't recommend it probably. I think Tomaszewski's handling of position is much better. Knight f4, and then simply develop no bishop d3, and then later on with b4, if the knight already committed itself to to a6, so a5 doesn't come that quickly. Would have been maybe slightly better. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this small recap of the FIDE Grand-Prix in Beijing. I try to cover some other games, so leave a comment on my channel on YouTube, DailyChessTV, and follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and yeah, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.